Hi, welcome to my video channel where we question everything. Today I would like to discuss sort of an important topic, what happened last week, and that was the counteroffensive of the Ukrainian Army on the Karkiv region, with especially an emphasis on a video that was made, a podcast by the Duran from Alex and Alexandra. Now, I've been following them for a long time, and they have always talked sense, and I actually like what they say, and their analysis were always on spot. But I believe that the events that happened last week sort of, well, the video sounded a little bit not off topic, but as if they have dropped the ball and either reacted emotionally, because they are basically supporters of the Russian defense or special military operation. And when I heard about the video and I listened to it, I felt that they forgot a lot of stuff they had previously talked about and completely talked a different type of a narrative. Now, I'm no military expert. You can call myself actually as an armed general. But one has to ask questions, and that is what we are here for. So basically the story goes that the Ukrainians had the counteroffensive in Kherson, which was a total failure. And then when it was a failure, they tried another counteroffensive just south of Karkiv. And, well, everybody thinks they gained a lot of ground, which is actually true. Not that they didn't cover the ground, but they met basically no resistance, and there were very few troops, Russian troops, if there were any troops in any case. And the people that were there were called sort of the home guard, which were more policemen, and not really fighting soldiers. And then these guys were supposed not to be trained to fight back. So, but I can understand that. If you're on the front with the enemy, you have to have some fighting skills, but the way that I understand it is what they were too few, and the Russian generals decided that they are vulnerable and will be overrun, and they actually started a withdrawal a couple of days back last week. So it wasn't an orderly withdrawal, it was actually a planned withdrawal. And the Russians actually allowed the counteroffensive of the Ukrainian army to proceed and progress quite far. I don't know all the names and so on, but Balakleya was apparently a town or a city, and they were now moving on to Ilzum, which is also a fairly medium-sized city, about 70,000-80,000 people. And well, it's Monday today, so I understand they went up to the river, but they have had some seriously losses, and it cost them some equipment and men. Not that Zelensky and his crowd actually care about casualties and so on, but well, that's about basically the story. Now, Alex and Alexandra talks the most actually, so if I talk about mostly, I'll talk what he said. And the basic premises becomes that the Russians were totally caught off guard and didn't understand what was happening. Now, that's really hard for me to swallow, and I have to ask the question, did the Russian military commanders really miss the build-up of the troops, of Ukrainian troops in that area? And if they had, how can it be? Because they have satellite coverage. Up till now, from February to now, they have proven that they have excellent intelligence sources on the ground, and by electronic, and by observation, and by UAV. So, and if Alex says that they knew that the buildup was already for 2 weeks going, and what makes them think that the Russians didn't know? So that's question actually number one. So the second one is actually, why didn't the Russians actually prepare for this assault? Now, one has to look at the bigger picture. The bulk of Ukrainian military was in the Kherson area, and everybody thought that there would be a counter offense being launched in that thing, in that direction, and the biggest defending force was actually gathered there. And that is the correct maneuver. You should actually concentrate your forces in that area. Well, then secondly, if one looks at the daily briefings that the Russian military provides, it wasn't only in Kherson that military action is happening. It's also all along the front, going from Kherson upwards. And they were attacking, there were missile strikes and there were artillery. So it wasn't only a Kherson defense or a defense against the counter-offense of the Ukrainian, which in any case miserably failed twice. So the Ukrainians lost a lot of equipment, a lot of men, and equipment that cannot be really replaced because there's a lack of equipment, and especially equipment supplied by the Western nations and the USA. So that was sort of a disaster, if I would really consider. And then if we look now at the Karkiv, so why did the Russians allow the Ukrainians to actually progress into that area? Now, like I said, I'm not a military strategist, but what I sort of noticed in the last couple of months is that one has to ask, what was the directive that Putin gave the Russian army? Firstly, it said that they will support that sort of the Nest republics or the Donbas republics requested military aid from Russia. So the purpose is that Russia provides support to the Donbas republics. That's number one, a very critical point, very important point. Secondly, throughout the months of fighting, we constantly were informed that it was the Donbas militia that were doing most of the fighting, and the Russians were actually providing the backup. And the backup, I mean, it's a support, which means the artillery, the aviation, and the electronic countermeasures and the anti-aircraft systems, and all the advanced, basically, systems. But it was the Donbas militia that actually did all the fighting. And I would presume, since Russia is supporting the Donbas, that the Donbas generals or military leaders are determining what are the priorities on the front. And if you look at what has actually happened, is that initially, they, in the first couple of months, apart from occupying certain regions like Kherson, and also Elysium, which is now part of the counteroffensive. But it was for the liberation of all the Lugansk republics areas. And so I would believe that was a joint decision between the Donbas republics. And then they would come down, and then they will liberate the Donbas remaining areas in the oblast. And this is basically what has happened. So, firstly, to sum it up, I believe that the Donbas military leadership is in command of all the operations. They determine what is priority. The Russians assist them in terms of technology, support with artillery and all the other stuff. And they might give some guidance to the military leader, but ultimately, it's still the Donbas military leadership that makes a decision. So, coming back to the counter-offensive in Karkiv, I can look at it twice, two ways. Firstly, while we call them the Russian leaders, military leadership, which now, I know it was the Donbas, but let's call them all together. And everybody's in the case talking about the Russians. So I might as well keep going with that. So in any case, the Russian leadership had made a priority. They decided to defend the Kherson area and withdraw troops from that area. So you could argue it goes for the defense. But you can also argue about that it could be a trap. Because what we have learned through all these months and so on is that the US is providing the Ukrainian army with intelligence, satellite maps, Russian positions, Russian depots, and all those needed for the Ukrainians to target. And I would also believe that they provided Ukraine counter-offensive in the Karkiv region with the necessary information. Say there are very few Russian defenders, and that would be an ideal position to attack. Now, just from that side, if I was a general and I looked at it, and I'm flipping a dumb person in any case when it comes to that, and how do I actually make this, take the American intelligence as an advantage? That's by bluffing. Everybody's actually talking about that the Russians have a mobile attack force. They have a minimum of personnel, and they have 2,500 kilometers of front line that they have to defend. And the only way that they can do it basically is by high mobility and the aviation. So what I would have done is this, and since I have mobility, I will deliberately remove some of my troops to the Kherson area. Well, it sounds like a valid withdrawal. And that would create perception that we made a mistake. And then the Ukrainians will try to exploit the mistake. But we knew they're going to do that. It's like enticing a person like a carrot. You have a carrot, holding a carrot in front of him. And as soon as they take the bait, they move in. They move fast because there's no resistance. Because they move fast, they have to they have to cross open areas. They're not going to get entrenched in the existing defense positions. So they're not going to go and climb into those trenches or pillboxes. They're going to run because they feel they're now on the move. They got the initiative. So they will be an open field and open targets. That's number one. Number secondly, the most important thing that always happens is their supply lines. They will run away from their supply lines. And at one stage, they were not even at Elysium yet, or Elysium or whatever. The nearest supply line was already between 50 and 75 kilometers. And what happened then? The Russians started to bring in their aviation, and they started to bomb these guys. And as far as I understand, they had some heavy casualties. And if I was a military commander, Russian military commander, I wouldn't concentrate on these guys. Let them run. Let them run until the Polska River, or whatever it's called, where I have withdrawn my troops to set up defensive position. So that's the wall they're going to run against, and then they're going to be stopped. Of course, you have to stop the advance. Otherwise, they just keep on going to Lugansk and so on. So you have to stop them one way. You have to start controlling them. So it is inevitable that the Russians will stop this offensive. They have to. There is no other options. And they will do it because they have superior firepower, aviation, all the other stuff that goes with it. But coming back to the original, so the guys will run forward, run away from the logistics, and if I was the general, I wouldn't really fight these guys. I wouldn't really chase them. I will just focus on the supplies and supply columns that have to come, and over between 50 and 75 kilometers. They have to travel. And according to what I understand is there are 9,000 troops involved. And to support 9,000 troops is not one truck. It's 50 trucks at a time. And not one column, but multiple columns. Supplying them with food, rationing, ammunition, whatever you have and so on. And then we're not even talking about the artillery in any case that have to be drawn afterwards, after them. And these going to travel on the roads. And if I was the Russians, I would have intelligence gathering, either, I don't know how, but in my case, simple would have said UIVs. And put up a lot of UIVs, cover a wide area. And above these, I would have a separate UIV that has the long distance. And I will look for those columns. And I will destroy every column that comes in, every supply column that comes in. And I will starve these troops in the counteroffensive. And at the end of the day, that's more than half of the battle won. But in any case, coming back to the Duran article, basically they said a lot of things that actually doesn't make sense. And it's actually contradictory to what they have previously said. Firstly, like I said, they argued that the Russian military commanders were caught off guard. I don't believe like that. There's no sign that they were caught off guard. Otherwise, there would have been chaos and chaotic withdrawals, which didn't happen. Then they said yes, but the civilians that were basically in these towns, they would have felt they were betrayed, especially all the Russian supporters and so on, and they now will be prosecuted or persecuted by the Ukrainian Army. Now, just this one thing is two things. Firstly, if they are persecuted and they are killed, then there will be very bad propaganda for the Ukrainian Army. And it will come out, like Bucha came out. It was false. On the second side, if you look at the whole action of the Russians and what they did in the last 6 months, they always protected civilians. They would have ensured that those pro-Russian inhabitants of these towns would have gotten a chance to withdraw together with the soldiers. There's no ways that they would have left him behind unless they naturally elected to that, but then they signed their own death warrant and you can't really blame them. Well, you can blame them, but it's a problem. So the civilians are not really damaged. And then I also heard that in the Karkiv region, can be anything of those, that most of those inhabitants in those regions are not really pro-Russians. They are pro-Ukrainians. So I don't think that there were many collaborators, if you want to call them. So it wasn't that big an exercise or problem to evacuate those people. Right? So that's one of the things. Then they started to blame Russia, Putin. Oh, okay, they were talking about Putin. Now, nobody should actually think, yes, Putin is the chief commander of the army. But in the global context of Russia, this special military operation is not the main focus of Russia. Russia has a lot of other things to do. And for Putin to fully concentrate all his attention on that is ridiculous. Number one. Number secondly, he's a politician, not a military person. And he will leave, and they even say that he's a good manager. And what does a good manager do? He delegates the work to professionals. And who are the professionals? The generals that are actually on the front in the Donbass, managing and operating and planning the whole Russian support structure. And those guys are in command. And those guys are taking the responsibility. Now they want to blame Putin. Yeah, Putin wasn't up to date and didn't know what's going because he and his top generals were in Vostok for a military exercise. But I'm sorry, that's a little bit ridiculous. Number one is, he wouldn't get involved day to day. He would have informed him. He would have asked him, do you know what to do? The generals would have said, yes, we know what to do. Then he would have said, go ahead. That's it. And also, if I understand this, I know I'm not correct, but let's say the Russians have 1 million man, a strong army, permanent force. They have thousands of generals, or hundreds of generals, of which a small numbers actually in the Donbass running the operation. So I'm not sure how Putin can be held responsible or would have the final say in any operation, or why would he even get involved in this matter? Right. Then they had to look at the propaganda. Yeah. Yes. If I have to say, the West has a propaganda a machine, and if they have to give him points or score out of 10, I will give them 20. And if I have to give the propaganda machine of the Russians out of 10, I doubt I would have given them a half a point. There is no Russian propaganda. Well, there is a little bit, but not enough. And the core principle that everybody forgets is that the Western world is large, and they all speak mostly English. And the media is English. And the propaganda is English. And selfs me here sitting in South Africa is talking English. And that is the only propaganda I can find. Unless somebody of the alternative media that can speak Russian can translate for me what is happening in Russia. Otherwise, I won't understand it. And otherwise, even if the Russians want to do propaganda, it won't reach me. Because I wouldn't be able to understand it. So that's number one. Number two is, how much outlets does the English-speaking media have? A hell of a lot more than the Russians. And the Russians are banned in the East and in the West. So they can't even get their stories there. And who owns the media? They're all privately owned by 6 big companies. That's it. And fourth point is, the West had more than 30 years of experience of doing proper propaganda. How long does the Russians have? Well, they start just beginning it. That's it. So naturally, propaganda will be high. But do the Russians react to propaganda? Are they fighting a war in order to please the population and make the population feel good? No. No military does that. You don't go and attack somebody and sacrifice a lot of soldiers with a purpose of having some photo op or some propaganda media like Zelensky is doing. And in no circumstance will Russia ever do it. And if there's a perception of that the Russian military leaders failed in this counteroffensive at Karkiv, and the people are becoming emotional and feel disappointed, that's not a problem for the military. It's a problem for these people. Because we have become so used to instant gratification, instant information, and if it doesn't go your way, you feel disappointed, instead of thinking about the whole matter and going further. Right. And then, again, why I actually have this opinion? So, because Alexander talked about Palmyra, the second taking of Palmyra in Syria. Now, I was also following that whole process in Palmyra. But again, Assad went to Russia and asked Russia, please help me. And Russia said, or Putin said, sure, we're going to help you. We're going to send you aircraft, and we're going to be your aviation, and we will help you with electronic warfare, and so forth and so on. I'm not sure if he sent soldiers, but if he sent soldiers, it wasn't a lot of them. So again, Syrians were in charge. Syrians did the footwork, the normal infantry and the attacks. And the Russians provided air cover, which is the more safe option. And if you look at also how Putin and the new East, or the new world order, if you want to call it, the Eastern Bloc countries, how they talk, the main concept is they will not interfere in anybody's internal political problems. That is that country's thing. They will assist countries, but they will never interfere. And it's the same principle they applied in Syria, and it's the same principle they now apply in the Donbass. The Donbass is responsible, the Donbass have asked for help, and Russia is providing that assistance. Those are key concepts the one has to understand. And then Alexander talked about Putin's whole attitudes to doing the legal thing. Actually, I think he talked about, a couple of months back, he talked about the whole rebuild thing and why Putin follows that. But I'm not totally sure. I might have just read an article about it. But the whole concept is that Russia wants to work according to international legal system. Nobody should ever point a finger that Russia violated international law. Now, he doesn't do it for the purpose of the West. He's not concerned about the West's opinion and what they do. That's long gone. But he's concerned about what the New World Order bloc thinks. And he has to show them that he works according to international law, and that is trustworthy. And then what he does is the right thing to do. And if you look at all the speeches and all the actions that he's taken, that is the core principle. So he will not violate his principles or the message that Russia wants to send out to the world, that he will violate international law. And therefore he will not commit and do war crimes in the Donbass, under no circumstances. So even talking about this whole matter is ridiculous. And insinuating that in a war you will break laws, that's also not on. And why would Russia need it in any case to break laws? Why should they start carbon bombing cities? There's no need for that. They're already in any case winning the war. The war has already been won. It's just a matter of time and to roll up the army, the Ukrainian army, which will happen. And the roll-up of the Ukrainian army will not be a fight across the whole Ukrainian. They will destroy the Ukrainian army in Kherson and Karkiv on the eastern side of Ukraine. That is where they will destroy them. And after that, once they have destroyed it, they will move unhindered across the open field to a certain point that they will decide where to stop. That's it. That's the whole strategy. Destroying the army, destroying equipment, making sure that the Ukrainian army cannot fight. Then it will have to give up. And it will be there where they are now. They don't care about area, winning over area. They don't care about all this stuff. They care, their focus is on destroying the army, the soldiers, the morale, the equipment. Mostly the equipment. They don't want to kill the dingers. And then, yeah, but civilians, again, break the rules, go full in, attack with flipping 400 tanks. Why? Why you want to do that? You're already winning the war. Rules of engagement have totally changed. You are controlling the air, 90-95% with aircraft. And what you don't control, you control with missiles, long-distance missiles. These things of battling from trenches to trenches like in the Second World War or First World War, those days are gone. Russia can hit any target anywhere in Ukraine. Nothing is safe. That already changes the rules of engagements and how wars are fought. Secondly, also, trenches are out of date. You have thermobaric ammunition, which will destroy all trenches, even bunkers. You have the 155mm artillery. Those will has a big shock effect and a big radius of kill. Yes, they're not very accurately, but shooting 1,000 at the dinger's line, hell, maybe 10% or so hits a trench and that's gone, or very near to a trench and all those guys are gone. It's a matter of numbers and the statistics. Some munition will hit the target, one way or the other. In any case, so also, if you look at the intelligence and the high tech that the Russians are employing, they have infrared sensors, infrared binoculars, infrared, I don't know, cameras, whatever you want to call them. In these wooded areas, they can pick up any heat signatures. You cannot hide. In some of the videos I saw from the Kherson attack, the Russians were looking at the infantry or the attack from the Ukrainians 4 kilometers away. So I don't understand how the Ukrainians can even think of starting a counter-offensive. They're dead before they even gave one step forward. It's a useless operation. It's done. War's lost. Give up. You're just going to die. But in any case. So going back to the civilians and why Russia is so concerned about civilians. Well, I've been studying the last, well, I got involved in the world affairs basically with the first Gulf War, where Iraq invaded Kuwait. And I saw these tear-written propaganda of babies from incubators. And, well, it was so fake, anybody could have seen it. I can't believe that anybody believed it in any case. And then forward and forward and forward and forward. And the first thing that the Americans usually did is they destroyed they got air superiority by missile attacks. And then they controlled the air. And what's the point of fighting back if you cannot shoot down an aircraft? So an aircraft can bomb you, can shoot you, but you cannot shoot back. That's the last battle. And that is what happened in Iraq. It happened in Afghanistan. It happened in Libya. It happened everywhere. That's it. You're done. You lost the war. But what the Americans also always did is that after this, I don't know whether they wanted to waste ammunition or make money or whatever reason they wanted to do it, but then they started to destroy civil infrastructure. Dams, power, electricity. I don't know why they did it. I think they were just looking for targets. And then they started targeting stuff in any case. And then killed a lot of innocent people and civilians. Now, if you lost the war, your army cannot fight back. Then the only alternative is to fight a guerrilla war. And if you are American and you want to win the guerrilla war, you need the support of the population. You have to win their hearts and minds. And if you don't do that, you're going to lose the guerrilla war. It happened in Afghanistan. That's it. It was done deal from the beginning that the Americans will lose. It was a question of just how long they can hold on. Well, as long as they were making money, who cared? You know, the military-industrial complex. And also, if you want to occupy a country, there's no guerrilla war, you still need the population support. Now, if you bomb the population, you will never gain their trust, support. It's a lost cause from the beginning. So now you look at the Russians, they don't kill civilians. They don't destroy infrastructure. Why? Because at the end of the day, they need the support of the population. If you don't kill them, then they are your friends, except for the 1 year and there and so on. And why destroy the infrastructure? You need the infrastructure once you have occupied the country. And you want everything to run smooth. So it's important not to kill these people. Apart from that they're in any case Russian speaking, and the brothers and sisters of people in Russia itself. That's another reason, but that's not the main reason. So why? I mean, if you look at it, why is Russia not bombing the infrastructure in Kiev, the water supplies, the power stations? No, because at the end of the day, it doesn't want to antagonize the people, because they need the support of the people. And that's why I don't understand why Alexander couldn't understand that. Okay. Well, there was a lot of other things that were talked in that video. I will leave a link to the video in the description. You can have a look yourself. I was a little bit disappointed. I thought, a lot of emotional aspects and conclusions were made and forgotten what was said before. And for some people, it could have been shock. But the counter-offensive will be stopped. There has to be stopped. It will be reversed. How far, I don't know. It's all about the destruction of the army, the Ukrainian army. Territory is not important, except for clearing the Lugansk, clearing the Donetsk Oblast, and getting the artillery far away enough from the next city so they don't bomb it. If I had to do that, that would have been my main priority. And then afterwards, I would have taken Kherson and moved up to Odessa and the Dnieper River and Karkiv. But those will all be additional factors. And I will start from one side, not work on a 2,500 kilometers front. Like I said, I live in South Africa. I live in Cape Town. From Cape Town to Joburg is 1,400 kilometers, and I have to drive 14 hours and more to get there. And then halfway back, and that's how long the front is. That's a huge distance. Okay, so I will stop here. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. If you liked the video, press the like button, and if you want to subscribe and listen to some more stories, subscribe to my channel. Cheers for now.